This is the OFN Today on the Our Lads Football Network. That's right. The Super Bowl logo's out. Imagine that. The Super Bowl's here. Ryan Dunleavy. How about that? We made it to the Super Bowl.
Remember when the Super Bowl used to have like a different logo every year?
Okay.
It wasn't just like the same like generic logo with a different Roman numeral. Like it would be different colors and different shapes. And
Oh, I
you
haven't
remember?
even noticed. Have they so this the one I'm looking at right now, that's been the case for the last few years?
Yeah, like the number
That's
changes,
it.
but it's
Just the number
like
changes.
it's like a generic logo.
Okay.
Like for like the first 40 Super Bowls, the logo changed every year. It
That
was
would
like
be a creative idea depending on what city you're going to.
yeah, it was cool. And now it's just like, become standardized or whatever. Like, no, I thought it was cool back in the day. Like, I remember the Super Bowl logo patch was like kind of a big thing. Yeah.
And now we are getting our what an ironic twist of fate. For the first home Super Bowl game, and there'll only be 22,000 fans that will be in attendance. 7,500 of those will be workers, healthcare workers. So that means only like 14,500. And who knows out of that 14.5 who's going to wind up, oh, here you go. You work for the NFL or you're a client and we can get you in here. And so what do you,
Hmm.
I mean, do you think there'll be like more than, what's the over under on the amount of true Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans that'll be in the stadium?
Cool. 5,000?
I think that's a pretty good number. 5,000.
Yeah.
Oh man. And then not just that, but and maybe even more so are the 2 weeks that you'd want to be able to soak it all in as a home Super Bowl team. And that's all gone. I don't even know if they're gonna what they're gonna do during the next week and a half, 2 weeks. Nothing, probably, right?
Yeah, no, probably. Yeah, no, probably. Yeah. That's it's going to be it's an interesting Super Bowl, Greg, with the idea Kansas City's not flying in till the day before the Super
Right.
Bowl, and Tampa's like looking at their practice facilities across the street from their stadium, so they're like already there. Like they just literally have to walk across the street to go to the Super Bowl. It's then all the media is virtual this year. There's no like big arrival moment. There's no I don't know if you've ever been to a Super Bowl. There's no like bus busing the players and coaches around the city. Like I've been to the last three Super Bowls plus the one that was up here. Unfortunate, and it takes over the city.
Yep.
Even big cities like Miami, like you could feel the presence of the Super Bowl just in the traffic alone. And this year, like it's basically the team. Both teams are treating it like a regular game. Like Tampa will huddle up in a hotel like the night before, and Kansas City will fly in on Friday or Saturday, like they did when they went to Tampa in November. And it's basically a regular season game for both teams.
And it was interesting because the attendance in the Green Bay game, the championship game, was like about 8,000. But Kansas, and you
Mm-hmm.
could tell on television the difference because Kansas
Oh,
City, they even at 17,000 fans were it's okay, they were kind of getting involved and it was noticeable. But the Packers, it was just not noticeable. That was sad for the Packer fans. Only 8,000. So
no, and I think probably made a difference throughout the playoffs. I really think it did. I think sometimes in the past we've overvalued what home field advantages or whatnot, but I think this year's all the playoffs. I would like to know what would have been different. Like, do the Saints win if they
yeah.
have full crowd? Do the
Well, Tampa Bay won all three road games. So
do the Browns get off to that great start against Pittsburgh if Pittsburgh has their fans there screaming and whatnot? Like if it's as intimidating as a place usually is,
mhm.
I don't know. I think that let's put it this way: if you get told me we did redo the exact same matchups, but with fans in the stands, I would say at least one or two of the outcomes would have been different.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. Matter of fact, and I think maybe even the Green Bay one could have been one of those. I just that was just a dead place. It there was no and it didn't even I didn't even catch the weather, but it didn't even look that cold. Looked like what was it like 40 something like that, 35? I don't know. Didn't look like
Yeah,
didn't look like it could have been a lot worse. Let's just put it that way. So
you know what's funny though is remember I think it was Tampa when I was growing up was the team that had like they were like 0-20
yeah.
or something games that were under 20 degrees, right? This was like the Warren Sapp, Derek
Yes.
Brooks.
Not until they beat the Eagles that one year in that hellhole concrete stadium that they had did they break that streak.
Yeah. And they had never won when it was under so many degrees or whatever. And now Tom Brady's there, and he's like one of the great cold weather quarterbacks of all time. So you didn't even hear anything last week, or at least I didn't, about like Tampa struggling in the weather. It was like yeah, most of these guys practice year round in Tampa Bay, but they have Tom Brady, so the cold ain't a problem.
As far as the Tampa Bay Green Bay game goes, it's interesting because you take a look at the 4 touchdowns for the Bucs. First series, 3rd and 4, he hits Evans, and look, this is why if anybody thinks that the Patriots with Tom Brady this year would have made a difference, they're just not paying attention. Why do you think Brady wanted out of there? Because
wait, what do you mean? Hold on, what do you mean by made a difference?
Well, okay, could they have made the playoffs? Okay, I guess it's possible, sure. But if it were 1 and out, they would have been done.
Correct, I agree with
but
you. Okay.
No, they're not being a playoff true Super Bowl contender just because Brady was there, and he knew it. He knew Jacoby Myers and. I mean, it's just terrible. And he comes to the situation, and he's got Evans and Godwin and all these other guys, and he recruits Brown in. And sure enough, 3rd and 4, he just chucks it up to Evans, makes the play, sets up the first touchdown. Second scoring drive, 3rd and 9, chucks the ball up like basically a Hail Mary, 52 yards to Godwin, comes down with it, sets up the second touchdown. Then you get the Miller touchdown, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which is just, a Greg Williams-esque way to end the half for Green Bay. And then Jones fumbles the ball, sets up a 1-play, 8-yard touchdown pass. That's it. That's how Tampa Bay moved the football, with Tom Brady going, hey, I'm going to let these receivers just make plays. I'm going to chuck the ball up. They're going to come down with it because I've got the better receivers. Aaron Rodgers, that was the thing that we all complained about and criticized the Packers about. Just imagine what could have been if they would have used that first pick on a receiver in the draft. Let's say it was Jefferson, and he had Jefferson out there along with Adams. What kind of a difference that could have made for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think Aaron Rodgers agrees, which is why we heard him say what he said. I think that was more of a, poke at the GM than it was serious about him thinking his future in Green Bay is done. He must know that they're not going to get rid of him this year. So I think that was just a little poke to everybody to remind, hey, don't criticize the quarterback. Criticize what we did to get to this point. Is this the best wide receiver core Tom Brady has ever played with?
Absolutely.
I'm going to say no. I think it's the second best wide receiver core they've ever played with. I think that the undefeated year where he had Randy Moss and Wes Welker in Wes's prime, I think I would take that over Godwin, Mike Evans, and
Antonio Brown.
I think I would take that one, but I think it's debatable.
Yeah, and of course he also has Gronk.
But since then it's the best. I mean, in the last 13 years, this is definitely his best receiving core.
All right, now a couple other things, and let's talk about Rodgers because this is tough for Aaron Rodgers. Very tough. You got the 1 Super Bowl. You need the 2nd Super Bowl. Everybody knows how great the guy is. We all know it. But you still, when you're in the position, this is your game. I mean, you have 3 downs. Maybe he could have, I thought I had 4, whatever. You had your chances. You had a few chances to score. You had a golden opportunity to run the ball. His excuse about I think this is what his explanation was that he didn't run the ball because he thought he had an extra down. Was that what he said?
I don't know.
He said something like that when it was talked about what happened with the run. Why didn't you run the ball? And it was like, well, I thought I was going to have an extra down. I don't know. I just don't understand the explanation. But you could see if he would have ran the football, and I know he's not the way he used to be. He doesn't want to run anymore, but he still would have more than likely scored the touchdown. He would have ran his butt off with guys chasing. I think he scores a touchdown. So
he did against the Rams, didn't he?
What's that? Oh, against the Rams. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know how long that was. Was that like about same distance?
What was the distance here?
That
like
was 10 yards. This one.
I think that was more like 5, probably. Okay. But your point stands, which is I don't think that argument holds any water. I think he probably just didn't see it. He probably just didn't see how open he was, which, I mean, it's possible you just don't see. He didn't realize he had as much field as he did.
Yeah, or he just he thought, there's the opening. I think I have it. I'm going to go there. And it was a mistake. And it's tough because that was it. You didn't get another chance. Yeah. That was it. That decision is going to come back to haunt him. And now, look, you could say, yeah, Davante Adams missed that one pass in the end zone in one of those, but that was a little bit of a tough catch.
I will say Davante Adams is great. He was probably the best receiver in the NFL this year. Yep. But and look, I've seen the Packers play on Monday nights, and I certainly have watched some film of them. I can't say I've watched every play of all 16 games or all 18 games that they played before Sunday. But watching them attentively on Sunday, watching their every play, their 10-yard offense is very suspect. There was one drive, I think it was in the first half, they ended up kicking a field goal. All 3 throws went to Davante Adams. It's okay to use him as a decoy, guys. I mean, you can't, your offense inside the 10-yard line can't just be put Davante Adams in motion and we're going to throw it to Davante. Sure. It was like, okay, slant to Davante, fade to Davante, crosser to Davante. Yeah. That can't, as good as he is, that cannot be that can't be 3 consecutive play calls. Or if they had, I'm making this up, if they had 10 plays inside the 10-yard line in that game, 8 of them were throws to Davante Adams. You got to mix something else in. And I know they got hurt because Jones was injured, but you got to mix something else in there, guys. I was very unimpressed by their game plan right up, and not just the decision to kick the field goal in the fourth quarter, but pretty much all their red zone play calling before that. I was very unimpressed.
Yeah, and that's, again, it just goes back to their decision that shocked everybody to take the quarterback. And what that meant, that basically meant that they were willing to sacrifice the short term for what they're looking at as a potential long-term another franchise quarterback after Aaron Rodgers. And then they draft Dillon, which was also another critical decision because they have Aaron Jones. All right, so you know what? In that respect, I don't want to hear them complaining about Aaron Jones getting hurt. Well, you spent the high draft pick on Dillon. Then use him.
And he didn't. And then they used Jamal Williams. Yeah,
and you have Jamal. So don't give me no excuse about Aaron Jones, which I'm sure the coaching staff would probably like to use as part of an excuse. But look, that's what they did. They sacrificed it, and it bit them in the ass. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers should go anywhere else. I don't think there's any question he'll be the quarterback next year, and I see no reason to believe too that they won't have just as good as a chance again to get back into another Super Bowl. They just have to build up their team, and especially receivers. They got to give him some more options. I don't care how they do it. They have to find some more options.
Totally agree. I think we just saw with the sad end to Drew Brees' career that if you let these later prime years go, you're going to regret it, because pretty soon you're going to have, a shell of your former self. And that's what Brees was this year. And you're going to be trying to win, and you're going to regret that you didn't win 3 or 4 years ago. Well, those 3 or 4 years ago for Drew Brees are right now for Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
So I think you're right. I think they almost have to go like MLB trade deadline style and just load up for this coming season and try to win it in this coming. And whatever it does to the cap, whatever it does to draft picks, they need to put together basically. I hate the term dream team because dream teams never work because egos get in the way. But they need to find a way. Like they can't cut any costs. Like if it's deciding between Allen Robinson and he's 22 million, but Will Fuller's 15, get Allen Robinson and
if you can afford it, sure.
Well, find a way to afford it.
Yeah.
If switch bonuses, kill your cap next year. Find a way to flex your caps, which can be done. I'm not making some up. Guys do this. Kick. This is what the Eagles did. Kick the cap penalties down the curb for a year or two to make your run now and deal with the consequences later. I think that's what they should do because in 2 years, it'll be okay that they have all these high contracts because Jordan Love will be making peanuts for a starting quarterback.
Yep. And it's just it is something because, and I don't want to look at it and go, well, look, Aaron Rodgers had his chance with Brady, but Brady did have better receivers, and there's no question about that. But it's still, when you're looking at, you have two of the best quarterbacks that have ever played the game, and Rodgers is, what is he, like 5 years, 6 years younger than Brady?
43, 37.
7. Oh, 7, right?
I'm saying Brady's 43, Rodgers is 37.
6. Okay. So 6 years younger, Rodgers is, and Brady's got all this Super Bowl hardware, 6 of them, and Rodgers can't beat him in this game. It's a killer to his legacy. It just is. I don't, and he's got to get another one because 15 years, 20 years, when your legacy is really talked about, I think these are the things that are very important.
And look, Peyton Manning's going into the Hall of Fame probably this weekend, and no one talks about him as like, oh, well, he was really only won the one Super Bowl. That second one was like, Von Miller carried him to it, and he was really he got benched that season. No, he's 2-time Super Bowl champion, Peyton Manning. Yeah. And that's what Aaron Rodgers needs. 2-time Super Bowl champion Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, we'll get into the Hall of Fame, actually. They're going to announce the finalists. When is that going to be?
Not the finalists. They announced who's in. They announced 5 inductees on Saturday.
The 5 of them. So there are 15 finalists, correct?
Yep.
Okay, we'll go over that list in a little bit. But look, no matter what happened to Aaron Jones or what happened during the game, the fact is the Packers aren't going to win a football game when they pass the ball 48 times and run it 16. That's not what made them a dangerous offense. It was because they had the running game to complement the passing game. The defense had also played pretty well. And I have a big problem if I'm a Packer fan with this King kid that's getting beat left and right all day long, and then he's the guy that's out there that's committing the last penalty of the game to kill the team. That's some of that stuff is going to be really hard for me as a fan to forgive.
Absolutely. What did you think of the penalty?
I think the only reason they made the call was because he grabbed his shirt so wide and so apparent to everybody that I guess they felt, come on, I got to call this. I hate when they call those things in that circumstance because the Packers had some receivers that looked like they were interfered with as well, and they didn't call it. So that's the first thing that I thought about. But when I saw the shirt, I was like, since I'm an innocent bystander, I would have been good either way. That's just how it was. I understood it, why they did it. If they didn't call it, I would have understood that too.
What do you make of the idea? The argument is like you can't call it because you've called the game so loose all before that. So that wasn't a penalty for the first 3 quarters.
That I completely understand. And that's why I think the shirt thing was maybe the reason that I got to call this. I mean, everybody's looking at this. I mean, I can't not call this. That's just my guess.
Yeah.
I wish he wouldn't have. I just when a team loses their season over a call, it's a killer, and I never want to see that happen.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the call. I thought honestly, I have more of a problem with how free they let them play the first three quarters.
Sure.
And I'm not somebody who wants to see 25 flags in a football
Yeah.
game. I thought there were some other more obvious ones that they let go. So if you had called those four egregious ones earlier in the game, then that one wouldn't have looked so bad. It was just to go from, I don't know, what was there, four penalties in the whole game, and to that, if we had eight penalties in the game to that, I don't think anybody would have been complaining.
All right, and then we can talk about the 2-point conversion, which we've talked about this several times this season. I know where you stand, that you go for it just about every time. Okay. But we also have always talk about, all right, but that's not how they do it. So let's talk about the mind of a coach who doesn't always call the 2-point conversion. So the fact that LaFleur doesn't always call the 2-point conversion, I'm going to keep saying it. I said it again that Washington Tampa game. I just don't understand if you don't have that philosophy why you're doing it here. I just don't.
Remind me, what was the situation?
It was late third quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and if they get the 2-point conversion, let's see, what was the score? I think that would have made it.
28. No,
It was
that's right. Yeah,
28 to 10. Then it was
it was 28
28-17.
23. It was
Yeah, 28
28
to
23.
23. That would have got them within 3 points.
Right, and Lazard dropped the ball. Actually,
Sure. No, he
it
did. Sure.
was an easy. It should have been converted, and
Yeah,
he dropped the ball. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
But it's just, these things kind of come back, and it's just so early, and a point's a point. You're taking a point
Did it?
out.
Did it come back to haunt them? How did it? So
Well,
then
the only reason I
Tampa.
say it came back to haunt them is because that went into LaFleur's thinking. Because if they only needed 7, he goes for it. He doesn't kick the field goal.
If they needed 7
Yes,
instead of 8,
he would, because that's what he said. He got, well, we needed the extra point, the score anyway.
That's a good point, Greg. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it quite like that. That's a really good point. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a good point. Yeah,
but I agree with you. Is that I think, especially how we just saw it. We talked about it last week with Andy Reid. You have, and it happened again here, where you can definitely question LaFleur for kicking the field goal instead of giving Aaron Rodgers his MVP a shot, not being aggressive. We'll get to McDermott and him not being aggressive, kicking field goals in a few minutes. But that's what you have to do to win nowadays. You have to be aggressive. So I think more coaches should go for 2 points more often.
Yeah, you know how I feel about this. I would coach uber aggressively like I would coach a Madden football game. I hated the decision to kick the field goal there. It made no sense giving the ball back to Tom Brady. I think I've said this on our show before. There's this line in football, right, that people like to spit out, old timers like to spit out, that, like, I probably like Vince Lombardi said it or something, that you run the ball because when you put the ball in the air, 2 of the 3 things that can happen are bad. Well, that's not true anymore. That hasn't been true in 10 years, 15 years. That's not true anymore. It's now 2-2 because it used to be like, well, you could have an incompletion or an interception or a completion. So 2 are bad and 1 are good. Well, that's not true anymore because of the way the rules are with defensive holding and pass interference, that you're just as likely to get a penalty as you are to get it. You're more likely to get a penalty than you are an interception. The likelihood is probably completion, then incompletion, then penalty, then interception. So no, I think it was a stupid decision to kick the field goal. Give the ball back to Brady. You're probably not going to see it again. If there was enough time left that this is where I draw my line. If there was enough time left that the Bucs needed to get 2 first downs to run out the clock, then I would have.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Sure.
But when you're talking, it's 3 plays and you're out.
Yeah. Who cares about the fact that he has all 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning? You 1 first down and you're done. It doesn't matter.
Actually, the end of that game was a fascinating example in strategy because LaFleur kicks the field goal, right? Which we can debate. And then the Bucks returner stupidly slides down with 2:02 left and gives the Packers a free timeout. He could have not been tackled
Sure.
to the 2-minute warning and taken a timeout away from the back. He gave the Packers a timeout by getting tackled before the 2-minute warning. And then actually the Packers did something brilliant. The Bucks got 9 yards on their first play. And then I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
The Packers jumped offside on purpose, knowing that it was fruitless to try to stop them on 2nd and 1. So they basically restarted it at 1st and 10. I'd never seen that before.
That was smart.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was hard to believe the same coaching staff that kicked the ball 4th down and from the 7-yard line also came up with the offsides. It was hard to believe that, actually.
Yeah, back-to-back championship game losses for LaFleur, but you still there were enough good things that you saw from him and have seen even from this team. They were a much better defensive team this year than they were last year. And their trajectory is still going up. So Rodgers, though, I still have a problem with Rodgers in a way. His kind of the way that's the one thing that kind of I guess maybe it bothers me about Rodgers. He does seem to have, I don't know, I want to you know what I want Aaron Rodgers to do after the 3rd down? I want him to go over to the floor and go, we're going for it. That's what I want him to do. I don't want him to walking on the sidelines after they say they're kicking it and just put it. Okay, that's what he said. I'm not the coach.
You're a baseball fan, right?
Yes.
I forget you are, right? Do you remember in the World Series where they took out Blake Snell and he flipped out on the mound? He made that that's what I wanted Aaron Rodgers to do. Make the Blake Snell face and be like, what? No, no way. Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, and they had the 3 timeouts, so he could have just let's argue enough, call timeout, and then I'll get my way. So
yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah, that's something I don't.
They aided them on defense,
Yeah. So, but anyway, the Packers are done, and here's an interesting key stat: the Bucks turned 2 Green Bay turnovers into 14 points. So 2 turnovers, a touchdown on each. Green Bay, they got 3 Brady picks. It turned that into 6 points.
Wow.
So that's.
And remember, the week before they turned Drew Brees' 3 interceptions into 17 points. So as much as Tom Brady is an amazing story here in his 10th Super Bowl, really the reason the Bucs are in the Super Bowl is because their defense keeps forcing takeaways and their offense keeps taking short fields to turn them into points.
And the receivers are classing out everybody else that they play. They got the best receivers right now in the NFL, and it's showing.
Even some of the unknown. I mean, we give the top 3 credit. Scotty Miller, that play was unbelievable. We talked about him last week on our.
Yeah.
He has actually. I was thinking of you when he did that because we were talking about how people look at him and think he's Welker or Edelman or Kravette or somebody like that because let's call it what it is. He's a white receiver.
Yeah.
No, he's a burner,
Yes.
and he just burned down the deceivingly fast, boom, bang, touchdown, game over. Big play. And then the other guy, is it Tyler Johnson? The guy who made a crazy catch on the sideline against the Bucks, and he had a couple catches against the Packers. I mean, their 4 and 5 receivers are good.
Yeah.
So, it's not just the top 3. Yeah, that's is that the best receiving core in the NFL? Probably.
Yeah. And that's why if they do lose Godwin, which they probably will, because somebody's going to overpay him, and then Brown, who knows what happens to him? You can just, all right, Johnson's up, Miller's up. So the Bucs will be okay in that department. But this is definitely not about Tom Brady. He's part of the story. There's no question about that. But there's a lot more that's going on there with the Bucs. Okay. Before we move, that 39-yard touchdown to Miller. How in the world? I mean, really, what's going on here?
I think I told you. I think I told you last week, and I think I told you 30 seconds ago. I think Scotty Miller deceives people with his speed. And if the coaches can tell you and you could go over it in game plans, but when you're a cornerback and you see Scotty Miller line up from you, you're thinking, I'm faster than this guy. And Kevin King, you're not faster than Scotty Miller, and boom, touchdown.
So shouldn't the coaching though in that circumstance be like, okay, we have to give you 10, 15 yards, and if you're gonna, really?
They were trying not to give up a field goal. They were trying not to give up.
Yeah, then they got bit for it. All right. Now, as far as the Chiefs and the Bills, to me, looking at Kansas City was and analyzing that matchup, it was really all about, are the Chiefs going to wake up? Are they going to play like the Super Bowl champion team we saw last year, the team that we saw a little bit early on this season? And by the way, I think one of the last games that we saw the Chiefs play where it looked like that they were actually involved was the Tampa Bay game, offensively. So they've been falling asleep in a lot of these games. They got lucky because Mahomes got hurt and Henny bailed them out, but they are now back to elite level. And I am shocked that the line is 3.5. I actually thought it was going to be between 6 and 7. I'm a 3.5. Are you watching these games?
I think part of it is home field advantage.
Yeah, I know, which means nothing.
Means nothing. And part of it is Tom Brady, which they're just expecting Tom Brady to pull another rabbit out of his hat.
Yeah.
Look, here's what I want to talk about, Greg. So there's the 72 Dolphins, undefeated. Then there's the 84 49ers, 15-1. The 85 Bears, 15-1. You probably saw both those teams.
Yes.
I'm too young. So there's 3 teams, right, that were 15-1 and better and won the Super Bowl. We know the Patriots were 16-0, but they didn't win the Super Bowl. So I'm pulling them out of the class. I'm talking about just champions.
Okay.
The Chiefs were 14-1 and then set everybody and lost to the Chargers. Otherwise, they would have been 15-1. Mm-hmm. They finished 14-2, right? So there's probably another 4 or 5 champions that were 14-2. Why are we not talking about the Chiefs as like an all-time great team? Why aren't they in the same conversation with those 84 49ers and 85 Bears? They should be. Those were 15-1 dominant teams, and that's essentially what the Chiefs are. I'm not counting that Week 17 loss. I'm sorry. When they treated that like a preseason game.
You're talking about last year's team?
No, I'm talking about this year's team.
Okay, this year's team.
This year's team was 14-1.
Well, I think you're saying, why aren't we saying, hey, look, This is really a 15-1 regular season team. Why aren't they being talked about as one of the greatest teams of all time?
Yeah, that's exactly.
I think the reason is what I was just saying. Especially when you're talking about perception, especially nowadays in the world of gambling, the way it is, they hadn't covered a game in half of a season, which means that they were. Matter of fact, I think in that stretch, all of their wins were by 6 points or less. So they weren't winning.
So you think it's about margin of victory?
Yes. They weren't winning that way. There were probably a lot of people lost money on them. So you're going to have a lot of negative effect that people are not looking at them as positively as they should.
Okay. I think it's garbage.
And I agree, because now they have proven that it is garbage after the way they looked against the Bills. And I think they're going to they're going to take it out on the Patriots in that line in 2 weeks, and I'm going to take advantage of it.
I think it's a way too small line. I think the Chiefs will be one of the top, 6, 7 Super Bowl winners of all time when somebody 10 years from now is going back to rank.
Because you win back to back, and that is something that just doesn't happen.
They were 14-1 the 84 Niners weren't defending champs, the 85 Bears weren't defending champs, the 72 Dolphins weren't defending champs. They were 14-1. Again, I'm not counting Week 17 when they benched everybody. They were 14-1, getting everybody's best shot. I'm sorry, that's an all-time team. I'm sorry, that's what it is. As a defending champion, to go 14-1 is an all-time team.
And but of course, they just got to take care of business in 2 weeks.
Correct, because again,
take care of business, And I don't look, take care of business, and it's going to be there. I mean, it's not going to be, oh, should we have this conversation? The conversation will have been answered. It's done, even though
But
nobody's talking about it.
No one's having that conversation now.
Yeah. But not only will they have the conversation if they win, but the conversation will go quickly into, yes, they are.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. So let's get ahead of the curve. Yeah. Why don't you get ahead of the curve?
Absolutely.
Everyone's going to have it and answer it next week. You and I are having it now.
That's it. It's recorded. Okay. So as far as I was saying with McDermott, what is he doing? I mean, you can't be kicking field goals against the Chiefs. Aren't you paying attention to what's going on in the NFL? This is the problem that a lot of fans have with coaches who are on the defensive side of the ball. You know, this is what they do. They're more conservative, and that's it's just a lesson maybe that, you know, you would hope that McDermott learned. You know, maybe he learned his lesson last year. He played Josh Allen for a whole half in the last game of the regular season because maybe he thought that affected him in the wild card game last year. So this will maybe be a lesson next year in the playoffs when he needs to go for it. 4th down, 4th and 5. You know what? Screw the field goal. I'm going for the touchdown. I learned my lesson.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he coached that game to keep it close and not to win it. And I think when you're playing the Chiefs, you have to coach to be okay to be blown out. Okay, it's 4th and goal from the 5. We're going to go for it. If we get it, we're going to keep pace with them. And if we don't, you know, there's a chance we came up empty here in the red zone. There's a chance we're going to lose this game 28-0.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I think to beat the Chiefs, you have to be okay with being blown out in order to possibly pull the upset. You can't play to keep it close because you're going to trade field goals for touchdowns.
Yeah, and I don't know whether or not he felt that maybe because he hadn't seen the Chiefs break out in a few months that, no, they're not going to break out against us. They haven't broken out against anybody. I'm going to keep this game close. And like you said, or I don't know, maybe if the Chiefs had blown out their opponent last week, he might have been a little bit wiser to the fact. But that was just bad foresight by McDermott to not go into the game already feeling that, hey, I might be getting their best game, and I have to. This is the strategy, guys. Every time we get it, 4th and inside the 20, 4th down and manageable, just so you know ahead of time, don't come back to the sidelines. We're going for it.
I can even honestly live with the one right before the half because they drove 80 yards over 7 minutes to come away with that right before the half with 0 points. I can almost live with that one. I think that made it 21-12. If I'm right, I can almost live with that. There's a half left. You're down 9. You go into the locker room as the team that scored last. I can almost live with that. But the other one, when they were down 28-9 or 28-12, right? They were down 28-12. To kick a field goal there, down 28-12. I mean, that's a surrender kick. To credit my buddy Steve Politti over at NJ.com, the term surrender punt, when you punt from your opponent's 40-yard line, that was a surrender field goal. That's what that was.
Sooner or later, the Bills, and look, this is another, maybe, look, when you look at their season, they went as far as they can go with their offense. It was all Josh Allen. They had no running game at all. I mean, it's embarrassing how bad that running game was. And Singletary, over the last few games, watching him, he just looked like the game was way over his head. I mean, yeah, he didn't have a good game against the Colts. He didn't have a good game in this one. He's dropping balls. He's falling all over the place. The Bills got to find themselves a number 1 running back.
Agree. It's funny, right? We always devalue the running back until you see how not having a good running back makes an impact. And the Bills were really hurt this year by not having. And you don't need a McCaffrey or a Barkley necessarily. You need somebody on the level of an Aaron Jones or a Fournette or somebody like. You need somebody capable. And Singletary and even Zach Moss before that, that was too big a hole for them.
Yeah, and interesting that you bring up Fournette because, and you also mentioned before about putting like a dream team together, and you have the personalities. Well, how about these personalities in the Super Bowl? Le'Veon Bell, Tyreek Hill. Then on the other side, you have Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette. Sometimes it just shows you, though, why these teams constantly go after these players, because it's about winning. They know, I mean, most of these guys, I mean, look, I'm willing to give Tyreek Hill the benefit of the doubt because he's been clean for the past few years. But the other guys, they're all head cases. And it hasn't mattered so far. Hasn't affected the team.
Look, there's different things, right? I mean, what Tyreek Hill is accused of is different than what, Le'Veon Bell being a selfish football player. So I can't group them all together in the same group. What I will say is that guys who have had run-ins, whether run-ins with the law or, run-ins with teammates or whatnot, they tend to get into the team first mindset with guys like Andy Reid and Bruce Arians. There's a reason coaches who have been around a long time, who have had success, get guys like that to buy in and stay out of trouble. And there's a reason. I mean, that's just the truth, right? That you don't know if that would be the case if those two teams had two different coaches, if all those players would be in line. It's honestly, it's one of the reasons I'm surprised Antonio Brown didn't work out with the Raiders, because I thought him and John Gruden would be a good pairing. But obviously, it was oil and water. You there, Greg?
Oh, I'm back. Greg? So okay. The Bills are headed in the right direction, and just like we said with the Packers, but the Bills have the younger quarterback, so there's a lot to like about the trajectory of the Buffalo Bills. As far as Josh Allen, I don't know if. I think, a lot of times we see these players, and sometimes they can come into a league, and within 2 or 3 years, whether they end up just being good players or great players, you've seen their ceiling. And I know McDermott made a statement about this is Josh Allen, this is not his ceiling, whatever. I kind of disagree with that. I think there's a lot to like about Josh Allen. There ain't no question about that. But I think this is Josh Allen, and he's a gunslinger. He's a better version of Lamar Jackson. He can throw the ball and he can run the ball. But you have to help him out, and I think there's a lot to like about it. But I hope they don't have like a Dan Marino effect with him, where they're just going to rely on him in the passing game for the next 5 or 6 years, like we were just saying, and neglect the running game. As much as you don't want to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, he would be a much better football player if he had a balanced offense.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll see if the Bills can help him out.
You need the threat of balance. You don't need balance. Those are two different things, right? Like, people get carried away with balance. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to call 30 run plays and 30 pass plays. You need the threat of balance.
Yes.
And the Bills don't have that.
And the other thing that really hurt the Bills, and we talked about this a couple of times this season, was their defense. The defense really let them down this season. The defense, as Josh Allen, the first couple of years was Josh Allen was trying to develop his game. It was the defense that was holding the Bills. There was the defense was the main reason that the Bills made the playoffs last year, and the defense is really just falling off, and they're no longer a dangerous team. Yes, they're still well coached. They still have some pretty good players, but the defense has just really let the Bills down, and they were just destroyed by that Chief offense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, offense won all these games, right? They won last week when Bills beat the Ravens. They won when who was the other good defensive team that was supposed – the Rams, when the Packers beat the Rams. Offense wins these games nowadays. So,
all right, now before we wrap it up, let's update what is going on as far as the coaching news, and there's only one more coaching spot left, and it happens to be the coaching position that opened first.
Crazy.
And that's just a bad, bad sign for the Houston Texans. Is that, I mean, isn't that why you fire coaches early? So
they didn't hire a GM.
Yeah,
so
that's also
any work they did between firing Bill O'Brien and hiring Nick Caserio was kind of out the window.
Yeah. So they're still looking for their head coach. It seems that Leslie Frazier has a shot. It still seems that Eric Bieniemy has a shot. And I get the feeling that's what it's going to be. I mean, I think look, if they have, I think now, if they have any chance of saving Deshaun Watson, it's got to be maybe one of these two guys.
It sounds like I honestly, I have no firsthand knowledge of this. It sounds like from some reports I saw NFL Network that the Ravens receivers coach has a good chance here at this job now.
The Ravens receivers coach.
I think that's who it was.
Yeah, that would sound like something the Houston Texans would do.
I believe that's who it was. I want to make sure. David Culley.
Never heard of him.
David Culley, Mike Garafolo, a good friend of mine, and Ian Rappaport. Give them the credit here. I'm reading their reports. This isn't mine. But yeah, David Culley from the Ravens, assistant head coach and wide receivers coach for the Baltimore Ravens. Sounds like the job could be down to him and Leslie Frazier, not so much Bieniemy.
Okay. So I don't know if it's this guy that nobody's ever heard of, or a defensive coach. And maybe Deshaun Watson is gone, because really all Deshaun Watson has to do is do what all these other high-priced stars do, and that's just, okay, I'm not playing. So I don't care what you do, I'm not playing. This is your opportunity to trade me, to get value before the draft, free agency. Do it now, because if not, I'm telling you right now, I will be sitting out. If I have to retire, I'll retire. Whatever I have to do. And it's starting to be a lot more probable that could happen, that Deshaun Watson will not be in Houston anymore.
Correct. As long as the one thing he can't do is say, trade me to blank. Because once you do that, then you make it very hard.
Yes.
You trade me. I have a no trade clause. Here's 10 teams that I'll get traded to. Yeah. Trade me with one of them and I'll go. And I think that's probably where we're headed. As long as he doesn't trade me to X and box the Texans into a corner, I think that's where we're headed. Yeah.
And look, even as a Jet fan, I'm in the position where I don't want to hear anything. Just do what you got to do. I don't want to hear no more rumors, no more this is slipping out on social. I don't want to hear it. Just
let's play a game, Jet fan. I'm going to give you 6 quarterbacks. Give me the order of which you want them to be your quarterback next year. You ready? You got a piece of paper?
Just next year?
Well, yeah.
Or my quarterback for the next several years?
Well, unless it's Matt Stafford or Matt Ryan, and you know, however long, until they're not your quarterback. Okay. Deshaun Watson, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan,
all right,
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so far this is easy.
The rookie quarterback, whoever that is.
You're gonna make this hard for me?
Zach Wilson. Well, I want the order. I know who number one is.
Oh, you want the order. Okay. Who's the rookie quarterback? You're giving me Zach Wilson?
Whoever you want is your
Wilson. You mean rookie quarterback inserted into second pick of draft?
Lance Fields or versus Ryan versus Stafford versus Darnold versus Watson versus who's the other veteran I'm missing? I know I'm missing somebody. It's not Stafford, it's not Ryan. Who's the other? Carson Wentz.
Okay, so the order of who I would want after Watson.
Yeah, right, we know Watson.
The Watson's one, so who do I want?
But you got to keep it to account. I want you to keep it to account.
Like I'm a general manager.
Huh?
Like if I'm a GM and I have to decide how I want to bring these guys in.
Right. So you know what you have to give up for each guy.
Yeah, understanding. Yes, okay.
Watson's the best, but he's going to cost you the most, but he's going to be here the longest. You know, exactly. Everything that you would, have to go into that.
As funny as it's going to be the top two. which is the top two on the team and the whole situation. It's going to be Watson 1, then it's going to be Darnold 2.
You want Darnold too?
Yeah. And the reason I want Darnold 2 is because I
thought
want
you
nothing.
were done with Darnold.
What's that?
I thought you were done with Sam Darnold.
No, well, I'll give you the reason. First of all, I want nothing to do with Matt Ryan. Scratch him out. He's not even on my. And I want nothing to do with Carson Wentz. He's a head case.
So are they 6 and 5 and 6 respectively? Wentz 5.
I would put Ryan's at the bottom, and I'll put
6.
Wentz 5. Yeah.
Okay, so now you have 3 and 4.
The rookie quarterbacks are going to be 3 and 4. No, are going to be 4, and Stafford will be 3.
Okay.
But Stafford, I'm only giving up. I'm giving up my late first round draft pick, and that's it.
Okay. I think that could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe that in a third. That would probably do it.
I'd have to think about it. But definitely the main one is just my late first, and that's it. But yeah, the reason with Darnold is, and we talked about this last week too, is that they're getting. I like what they're at least doing is they're bringing in a new scheme that's a dumbed down scheme that could very well be the only scheme that could save this kid.
Okay.
So I'm willing to give him a chance. But
I'm glad we did that because I thought you were done on Darnold, and here he is, option number 2 for you.
For these guys, yeah. And as far as Watson, what I would give up, I definitely am not giving up. I'm not gonna. This ain't gonna be one of those deals, Jimmy Johnson or Mike Ditka deals. But
3 1.
Yeah, that's okay because I have 4 1s and I have Sam Darnold, so I can give the 3 1s. I can recoup some stuff from Sam Darnold, and I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah.
So
3 1s, and it's the higher one every year. So
yeah, and I think that and look, if they want Darnold, then they also got to throw in like a middle round pick or something like that in the deal.
Exactly. They don't want Darnold. If they're trading for the number 2 pick, they're starting fresh. So.
All right, so that's and as far as Stafford, I like the fact that he wants out. I don't know if it took him to watch that press conference, maybe 5 seconds, and he picked up the phone and.
Sounds like he made his request before they even hired him.
But anyway, it's good that Stafford wants out. He deserves to get a shot because he's not Phillip Rivers. He's not over the hill. He's still got a couple of years left if he could stay healthy. I love the possibility of him going to the Colts because they have a really good offensive line and a running game. 2 things that Stafford has never had. And you put him in that situation, he doesn't have to worry about wear and tear on his body, which is starting to affect his game the last couple of years. And I think that would be a really nice deal for the Colts because they have the 20th pick in the first round, I believe.
I like the way that went down. I got to tell you. Doesn't seem, and look, maybe Dave Burkett, who does a great job covering the Lions, will end up with some details that we don't know yet. But it seems like that was a situation where both sides knew, look, Stafford wants to win. The Lions are starting over again. Seemed like an amicable split with no hard feelings for anybody. I like the way that went. Look, that's not going to be the case every time. We know teams chase off their quarterbacks. What's going to happen with Green Bay? It seems like what happened with the Chargers and Rivers. We know this happens. We know sometimes teams are too loyal. It's what happened with the Giants and Eli Manning. They let him stay until he didn't want to play anymore. That was a good job of like a fantasy scenario for the Lions and Matthew Stafford, I think. He needs to go somewhere else. They need to start over, and they both realize it at the right time.
Yep. And so what do you think as far as destinations? Again, I think the Colts are at the top of the list. I think if the
Colts and Washington, I think, are the 2. Colts and Washington are the 2 I think he could wind up. Colts is a dream scenario for all the reasons you laid out. And Washington, I think he could go, and they're the best team in that division.
What's their pick in the first round, Washington?
Where is it?
Yeah.
19.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So and that's what it would take to, you agree, first round pick at 20 or 19. That should be it.
You maybe a 1 and a 4 or something like
that. Okay.
You know how those deals go. A 1 and a 4 for Stafford and a 3, something like that. But the basis of it is I think you need to get a first round pick for him.
And as far as the Patriots, look, we're going to find out really soon whether the Patriots are they trying to still win a Super Bowl in the next year or two. If so, they'll try to make a trade for Stafford. If not, they'll do what I think they should do, and that's, if Belichick wants that coach for the next 5 years, it's possible he does. Then you've already started the rebuilding with last year's class. Just keep it going. And within 3 years, as long as you find the right quarterback, you could be back in the final 2 years coaching, contending for his Super Bowl. But I don't know if he'll do it.
Yeah. I think the guy who ends up there is Matt Ryan. Call it a gut feeling. I don't have a source that says that. Right now, I think that my gut is the guy who ends up there is Matt Ryan.
Yeah, the only thing that's the Patriots do have a good offensive line. They are going to lose Tooney, it looks like, so that'll hurt. But you bring in Ryan, and I like the fact that the Patriots are kind of built for a quarterback that is immobile because they have a good offensive line. They have a running game concept. They have that all in motion because Matt Ryan, just at this point in his career, he needs a good offensive line and a running game. So that might not be a bad idea. The only thing is what do you think? I think Ryan's got a couple of years left. I don't think he has much time left.
Yeah, a couple. I think he has less than Stafford.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would not rule out Pittsburgh if Roethlisberger's done.
Yeah, but I think he has more time left than Roethlisberger or
absolutely.
Or like
if you're Pittsburgh, wouldn't you hey, you know what? Stafford's available. Go ahead, Ben. Retire. Do whatever you want. I'm going to go after Stafford.
Yeah, but again, that's sure you like to do that as long as Ben realizes that. That's why I'm praising the Lions situation because I covered it. I lived it every day. I covered it with Eli Manning. It's hard for especially a Rooney or Mara-owned loyal franchise to say to Ben Roethlisberger, "You should retire." It's very hard because the Giants couldn't do it to Eli Manning. They couldn't do it. So I can't see them saying to Ben Roethlisberger, "We're going to go with Matt Stafford. You should retire." I see them saying, "Ben, you make the decision." Ben says, "I want to play," and they say, "Okay, we're going to run it back with Ben Roethlisberger," even though whisper, whisper, we know it's not the best idea.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time believing that if Roethlisberger comes back, he's going to go somewhere else. I don't think anybody else would want him.
No, I think he's going to come back to Pittsburgh. That's why, and they're going to begrudgingly accept it. So,
but that's so. Would you agree with that though? You don't you think that they should be smart enough to be like, look, if we can get Stafford, it'd be better if we do that.
Yeah, but I don't think they would.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, you and I are talking about it as desensitized people. Yeah, that would be better, but that's not what the Rooney family is going to think. They're going to think Ben Roethlisberger is their guy.
Yep.
So
they're a very loyal organization, and that's a good thing for the most part.
Okay.
It can hurt you. All right, before I let you go, let's quickly go over these Hall of Famers. Are the only two sure Hall of Famers on the list that are definitely getting in Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson?
I'd have to see read me the whole 15.
Okay.
Those
tell me who you get. As I go through the list, you can go ahead and say maybe or definitely.
Okay. You get votes, so I'm not going to give you more than 5 that I'd put in.
Yeah, 5. Okay. Jared Allen.
No.
Rondé Barber.
No.
Tony Baselli.
Yes.
Leroy Butler.
No.
Alan Faneca.
No.
I don't even know what he's doing on this list. Torrey Holt.
No.
Calvin Johnson.
Yes.
John Lynch.
Maybe.
Peyton. Then Clay Matthews.
No.
Sam Mills.
Sentimental. Maybe.
Richard Seymour.
No.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Zach Thomas.
No.
Reggie Wayne.
And I'm just saying no this year. Like, could those guys get in eventually? Yeah.
Reggie Wayne.
Yeah. I think I'd make him. So far, I'd put him as my 5th guy.
And Woodson. Okay. So Manning and Woodson, are they definitely in?
Yes, they're definitely in. And I think somebody else you read me, I think would be Baselli. I think will get it. Yeah, I think he'll get in.
All right,
so he just missed.
Those are your top 3 can't miss. So then the last 2 are between these 4. Calvin Johnson, Lynch, Sam Mills, and Wayne.
Yeah, I would go Mills and excuse me, I would go Wayne and Calvin Johnson, but that might be a little too much fresh blood. They could make Calvin Johnson wait a little while, like they've made other guys wait a little while. So um, I wouldn't be surprised if they went somewhere in another direction first. And again, this is off the top of my
Sure.
head. I don't know. I'd have to pull up Torrey Holt's stats compared to Calvin Johnson's stats. I don't. I
I know the
know.
whole thing with receivers is just the timing. They're so different with
Yeah. Yep.
it's just crazy.
Yep.
How
Yep.
come no Richard Seymour?
I just, he was a dominant player for his time with the Patriots, but was he?
Yeah,
I
he
feel
wasn't
like
like a 10-year dominant
correct.
player.
I feel like he was more, if not a flat. I just feel like his dominance came and went pretty fast.
Yeah.
If that sounds.
Sure.
He was great for a little while. Not a 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All Pro. He was All Decade Team for the 2000s. So yeah, I guess he probably would get. Yeah, he'll probably get in. I just there's other guys I would put in.
Yeah, especially, he's
So,
part of that beginning Patriot run.
yeah,
And he
there's other guys I would put.
might be the
I put
most
this-
important defender on that Patriot run, early on. I mean, you have
Yeah.
the what's his name, that linebacker.
I mean,
What was his name?
you had Vrabel, and you had the other Teddy Bruschi.
Ted Bruschi, yeah. Obviously, those guys not where Richard Seymour is, and they also had the DB, Harrison, right? He was a heavy hitter.
Ty
Law, yeah. So
Lawyer Malloy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was that's when the Patriots were winning with defense back in the day.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, great job as always. We are potentially, we haven't put it in stone, but we potentially will return next week and talk. Actually, we're going to have you on a couple of times over the next several weeks to talk some Giant football, some Eagles football with our Eagles analyst. And then, of course, we'll talk about the Super Bowl sometime right after the Super Bowl. So are you going to be doing a whole lot of Super Bowl coverage?
I am. A lot of it, 6 days worth of it. Yeah.
All right.
I got a couple stories in the hopper already I'm working on. So
we'll check it out at the New York Post. Appreciate it, Ryan. Oh,
Thanks.
And by the way, I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you, I always forget to do this, but subscribe to our channel. If you like it, press the like button and comment as well. We really appreciate it. For Ryan Dunleavy, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time.